Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Gentleman Pursuits podcast. Hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy, staying hydrated, and most importantly, this is because like of recent events that happened to me. Make sure you find ways to completely unwind yourself from work, man. Like school or business, I don't care. Just make sure you have that one thing that's not it's not interfered by your work. Make sure to get your mental health in check. Especially it's winter now. It's easier for anyone to lose their mind, to be honest. It's a gloomy day in Vancouver here, but the upcoming guest today will for sure bring a smile to my face. Been talking to him for quite a while on Instagram now, so please welcome Andrew Cara, aka Bit by the Watchbug, on Instagram. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good, Ryan. Yourself?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. It's currently around 12 noon there
Yep.
in Toronto.
Yeah,
How's
we're
your
both
day?
3 hours ahead of you guys in Vancouver.
Right, yeah, yeah. Well, how's your day been?
It's been good, kind of relaxing. Morning routine's fun, wake up, run the dog,
You have
just
a
kind of
dog.
relax a little bit. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, what kind of dog?
He's a golden doodle. Actually, if I'm going to plug him, I got to plug him. You can find him at Life of Kawhi on Instagram. He doesn't
Okay,
post
that's
very often because he doesn't have thumbs, but he's
good.
cute.
He tries his best to post consistently. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
S-
Exactly.
Are you so I mean I just asked you about this before we started recording, but what
Mhm.
exactly are you studying right now for postgrad?
Right now, I'm in my Master's of Architecture.
Architecture. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I don't know why, but I totally guessed you're a biochem guy.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I totally guessed you're a biochem.
Yeah, sciences aren't really my thing, but I've always been into like the arts and design and whatnot. And it was the perfect kind of path for me, even though I didn't know it when I was applying at the time. It just kind of fell into place.
That is so cool. That
It's a
is so
passion.
cool.
Yep.
That is so cool. Oh, so wait, does that involve like a lot of math though for architecture, or is it just mainly arts and design?
So one of my prof puts it, you need to know just enough to be dangerous when you're talking to engineers. So you kind of have to know what you're talking about when it comes
Yeah.
to, the math side of it, but it's really not like a math based program.
Oh, okay. Dude,
Yeah.
because I totally expected, I don't know why, and guess you're a biochem guy. Today's questions is gonna be so much more different and interesting since you're such an artsy and architectural guy. Okay, first question, customary question, gotta ask, what is your current favorite watch?
And favorite, I mean, I think current and always favorite, although it's a tough, it's like a neck and neck sort of thing, but it's got to be my grandfather's Omega.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
The article you wrote about many months back, and it's an heirloom piece, and I have it right here. It's so
Nice,
timeless.
nice. It
It's
is,
clean,
it
it's
is.
classic, right?
Yes.
It's been through a lot. My grandfather, he loves talking about it. He lives here with us, and yeah, it's just a piece that always brings a smile to my face.
That's also for anyone that does not know what he was talking about. So basically, the first time I think that's the first time we talked. Yeah, a
Hmm.
few months back, I DM'd him. I slid in his DM asking for for an interview with him, and it's basically the Tales from the Gram interview. And I asked about which watch means the most to him, and that is the one. Is that the 1966
Yeah.
Omega?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, the
That's it.
1968 Omega, and it was so nice. It's so I love watches that are like slim and thin that fits well on your wrist. Some
Hmm.
watches you can just look at it and be like, that's gonna fit really well, and
Yeah.
that is one of the watch. So I really love that.
100%.
I'm also gonna link the article in bio, so if you guys want to check it out later, you guys can do so. And um, I am sure that because piling onto what I just said, when looking at a certain watch, you know why you like it and why you don't like it. So I'm sure that when choosing a watch or simply looking at watches on Instagram, they're searching for something within that watch that makes them go, "Oh, I like it," or like, there's something missing, right? So for me, for myself, it's a busy dial, but not overdone. So
Hmm.
like my gram or like a Cartier Santos Dumont or some examples that is a dial that has enough happening on it, but not tiring. So aesthetically speaking, I'm speaking to an architecture right now. For you, what constitutes a good looking watch?
I mean, for me, like you were just saying about the proportions, and that's probably the number one thing. Like if it fits under the cuff, if it doesn't, you know, like, and honestly, in my program, you're subjected to so many like kind of buildings. I mean, in program, but let's relate it back to watches. It's like you learn to love the things that bring a watch. Like you have a thick chronograph, you know why it's thick. It's because it has to house the movement, right? So you need to. I mean, for me, it's understanding what the watch is doing. Like I was like, okay, let's say my Breitling Super Ocean, it's like 17 millimeters thick. It's a huge beast, but you know, it's a dive watch. It goes down to 2,000 meters. It's like, it's an insane dive watch, but that's why it's so thick, because it has to be able to house that. So for me, number one is proportions and understanding why they are the way they are. And I mean, for me, I really love symmetry in the dial. Like symmetry to me is perfect. But in saying that as well, we're also taught that if you're going to do something, you need to bat towards the fences. So even if a dial isn't symmetrical, you really gotta make sure it's not symmetrical, or else, like, you know, people won't understand, like, oh, why, why is it, lopsided? Like there's oh my God, there's a Seiko. I think it's not the Arnie. It's the I think it's the Ripley, the one from Aliens, where it has that massive crown shroud on the side, and it's got two buttons up here. It's a massive rectangle. And I mean, there's a reason why it's like that. It's just, it's a super Thule quartz kind of tool watch, right?
Okay.
And people love it because it's, it's a cult classic. It's a cultural kind of favorite.
Right? Yeah. So when you talk about like asymmetrical, and you said when you, let's say, if you're going for asymmetrical, make sure you actually convey that message across and don't just half-ass it, right? So is there like, because when it comes to asymmetrical, the first watch that came into my mind was the I don't know if you know, this is the Jacquet Draws. I forgot what's the model name. So basically, do you know the Hermes Arxo de la Lune, which is like?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that's the first watch that came into my mind. Do you think you can like a watch like that?
Yeah, I think it can, because it's something that they're really portraying. Like even with your Grand per se, that crown shroud and the chronograph button, like it really comes out there. It really breaks the symmetry of the dial, but it's done like it's throughout their entire lineup. Essentially, all their chronographs are like that. So it's it's a theme that's continuous throughout their entire line, and it really draws in people like, hey, that's a brand that's doing something that really no other brand is doing. Like Panerai does it with their dive watches, but it's a different type of kind of crown and different system, right? So it's those are two brands that are they're doing it, right?
Because and let's say one example that I think watches that are like overdid what, like, because I say I like a busy dial, right? But when you look at some of the Seiko Prospects watches, there's too much going on in that watch, dude. It's like a Spy Kids gadget. There's a whole map on the watch. I don't even know where the time is. So yes, and piling onto what I just said again, from your collection, do you think you have a type? Do you think you have an aesthetic that you go for when you buy? Because looking at watches and say you like it is different from actually pulling the credit card out and say, okay, I'm going to buy it. So do you think?
I mean, for me, I don't think I really have a type. Like I appreciate so much, like, when it comes to design, it's so subjective, and some people really narrow themselves down, and that's their personal preference, and it's great. But for me, it's like, having how do I put this, having kind of an all-encompassing collection of different proportions, different styles, different typologies. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Just sticking, like, I know people who stick to just chronographs or just vintage, and it's their collections are awesome. But for me, like, to have a little bit of everything, I think is what my goal is, right? I mean, I'm not like, I'm just starting collecting watches as of, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But again, I was only must have been 17, 18 when I kind of started. And I'm only 22
Okay.
now. So it's like there's a whole
Yeah.
lifetime ahead to try everything, to trade stuff, to buy, to sell. Like, you know, there's just a whole world to just kind
Yeah.
of explore, right?
Because the reason why I asked that is because I can sort of ask a deeper question, as in like, okay, although there may not be a really prominent theme in your collection, but from the way you take pictures and the way you're trying to tell the world through your Instagram account, through your pictures, there's a certain theme that you may like to do, or a certain way you like to take pictures. So do you think there's a theme there when you take watches? Take
Yeah, like,
pictures of your watches.
yeah, I mean, when I'm shooting my watches, I kind of go with whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm doing that day. So, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, pre-COVID, I loved being outside. I loved, you know, going exploring. I'm still doing it. You know, I took a couple of pictures, you know, hiking and whatnot the other day.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, it's not necessarily a theme of the washes. It's a theme of just, you know, where my life is going. And I guess it's going to mature from there. Brackets
Okay.
question mark, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so interesting, because my friend, I know this one person, he is like around like 40 something, 50-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and he's only in his watch collecting philosophy is basically he need one aviation watch, one chronograph, and one diving watch, and all of them. So he's only into Rolex, whatever. I don't care. So he got a Sky Dweller, he got a Daytona, and then now he's waiting for a Submariner. And after that, he was like, he'll be done. Like, that's it. That's the end of watch collecting. And also from other podcasts that I've listened to, some people say that it is better for you to find a theme for your watch collection, so you can sort of know what you need or what you want and narrow it down. So, do you think that's right? Do you think there's like a golden principle when it comes to starting a collection? Obviously, when you go onto your journey, you have your own preference, but is there like a golden starting point for everyone?
I mean, like everybody's lifestyles are so different that everybody starts nearly in different places, really. Like people start all over the map. And I mean, where people are going with their collections and their goals, like you said, you know, it's different. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it. And I guess that's just, you know, the designer in me, that like there's no one right way of doing things. You could, like, okay, for example, for my projects, we're given one syllabus, we're given one project, but everybody just, they go all over the place. No one project is the same, even though you have the same parameters, the same, you know, the same building use. Like it's just, it goes all over the place. So when it comes to watch collecting, I guess that's the way I see it, is that like everybody's collection, yeah, even though people have, you know, similar, the same pieces or completely different pieces, depending on what your tastes are, it's just, you know, it's just something that like, it resembles their personality. So even with your friend who has their three, you know, the three pillars, I guess you could say, and they're done, it's like, well, really, you only need one watch if you really think about it.
I mean,
and
yes.
people live like that, right? They're like, okay, I'm gonna be wearing a suit and tie every day, you know, let's get a nice watch to complete the outfit. Done. Right?
Yeah.
But then there's collectors, like, and you know, people collect, you know, multitudes of things, right? Like you know, watches, cameras, cards, whatever. And you know, it's a hobby that people really still don't understand if you're not in the hobby. It's like, why spend so much money on this collection for something to tell the time when my phone can do it? It's like, well, it's not about that. It's about the romanticism of it all. You know, it's about like the technological innovations, the design concepts. It's like, okay, you have a black square that tells the time. Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So it's such a different, it's a different mindset. And I'm not saying it's a better mindset or not. Like it could get really toxic really quickly too. Like even in the interview, we discussed the article, we discussed that about, you know, people who get into collecting and are like, oh, my collection's better than yours. And, oh, I have this reference with this movement. It's like,
oh,
really?
yeah.
You
Outsiders
know?
don't understand. Yeah. So are you into cars as well?
Yeah, I'm into cars.
Because, okay, I would say that's like the trinity. When you, it's like a lot of people, when they're into watch collecting, they're into cameras and they're into cars. I'm
Yeah.
only into watches. I'm not that into cameras. I'm not that into cars. Like a lot of my friends are into cars, so I
Mhm.
may know a little bit of it. And that is so true of what you said, because when they're like talking about cars, they're talking about, oh, the 240Z, my like fair lady, or and then a 350 whatever. And I was like, dude, okay, it's like basically the same car, man. Like, so yeah, I wouldn't understand. So that's so true. And what I love to know is, from all the brands you've known so far, which brand do you think, in your opinion, has the safest, and which one has the most adventurous design? And the reason why I'm asking that is because in 2020, we can see a lot of brands, Rolex, Doxa, whatever, they're putting out like rainbow colored watches. And then there are more, I'd say, independent watchmaker that's fresh into the market that are trying to do like minimalistic watches. So it's really diverse on the spectrum. So what do you think? Which one has the safest and which one's most adventurous?
I mean, brand wise, if you're talking just in general, like the safest is Rolex. It's easy. It's an easy pick,
True.
right?
Yes.
It's, like, okay, with the recent release of all those beautifully colored dials, like, they have done it before with the Stella dials.
Mm.
And who is it? It's on Instagram. My God, Mr. David, Mr. David Silver, I think it is. He owns a vintage watch company, and you could find them as well on Instagram. And he just released a book, and even he was saying like all they do is sell vintage Rolex. That's all they do. And he brought out these beautiful Stella dials. He's like, look, Rolex was having fun at one point, and then a good chunk of decades go by. It's like, well, we only have black, white, and potentially blue dials, and maybe an orange hand here and there.
Yeah.
It's they did get very safe, and it's nice to see a brand like that kind of going into the color scheme. But again, the
Yes.
cases are the same, you know the bracelets are the same. It's like, okay, everything does work, but you could be a little bit more adventurous than just changing a dial color, right?
Yeah.
And then in saying that, like, you could still have like brands doing great, innovative, and fun designs with just black and white. Like all of these, like there's so many micro brands out there that I think are really putting the watch market in their place, like especially the Swiss watch market, because they're like, oh my God, like, we've stuck to our guns for so long. Like these brands are actually putting out, you know, beautiful designs, like whether it be the cases, dials, hands, you know,
Yeah.
everything, right? So I mean, I guess the ones that aren't playing it safe, I mean, I would say Notice to an extent. They're a micro brand out of California. Great couple of guys. They just released their Sector series, their field watches, and their dials are just so layered. Like there's such a depth to these watches because those dials, it's like a sandwich dial, and they have like layers on top of it, and it's insane. Another brand, I guess, another micro brand. Again, great owners is York and Front in Toronto,
York
and
in front.
they're York and Front. Actually, one of the owners is in Toronto. The other one's in Vancouver. Funny enough.
Oh, how
Yeah, I know.
the how do they operate?
Globalization.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
okay, that's true.
the beautiful world of technology. But yeah, they have their prototypes out right now, but they were going to release, and then COVID happened, right? So they're
Mm,
holding it off. And I think they're starting pre-orders actually in November, and given 6 to 8 weeks, we'll see them out in the wild. But again, their dials are gorgeous. Like it's either a plain white or black dial, but their
okay,
numerals
I'm
are,
looking at it. Yes.
yeah, they're gorgeous. Those numerals are brushed. I've seen this thing in the flesh, and it reflects light like crazy. It's
Oh,
it's like it's not reflective where it's like beaming back at you, but it absorbs the light and just it plays with the light so beautifully. So,
that
and there's countless other micro brands like that are just doing some amazing and beautiful things that like they fall within typologies of the watch world, like field watches, dive watches, dress watches. But again, like they're doing amazing things just outside of what we're traditionally used to.
yeah, I just recently did an interview with this brand. Okay, wait. By the time this episode comes out, I've already okay. So I can tell. I recently did an interview with Sartori Bayard, which is
Mhm.
an independent watchmaker. He the First of all, his watches are all really vibrant color, like green, purple, bright, like blue, sky color blue, right?
Mhm.
And the reason why I think it's so adventurous is because um, he puts a lot of cultural elements into it. Let's say there's a watch with Chinese character, there's a watch with Arabic numerals, and he also takes orders like custom orders when let's say I want to make a watch for my mom, okay, and I want her initials spelled on the dial, and he will do that. And I think that's really like adventurous on one side, but also fully reflecting the essence of watchmaking and
Mhm.
or watch collecting because it's all about the sentiment and, as you said just now, the romantic value and how
Mhm.
your personal experience is what matters, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but safest, I agree with you. It's Rolex. I also got another one in mind, which is IWC.
Mhm. Oh yeah, for sure. They've really stuck to their guns as well. Like they had the whole Flieger thing going in World War II, and they stuck with it as well. You know,
Yeah, the
like
same
amazing
blue,
watches. Yeah,
the
the same
same
blue,
blue.
the same blacks. Like it's, they're gorgeous watches. Don't get me wrong. Like I love IWC, but
Yeah,
again, it's you're getting it for that history and that timelessness. And I guess that's one way, or one reason why a brand should be safe is that they're sticking to their history, and there's nothing really wrong with that either.
Would if you were to start a watchmaking brand, okay, you have your own watch brand,
Hmm.
would you wanna like stick to a design? I mean, okay, every brand has a staple collection that is
Hmm.
just like that, right? But if we take a look at Seiko, they
Hmm.
have 10,000 different lines, and because they're so adventurous with their design, would you
Hmm.
rather be make a brand that's like IWC or Rolex or like Seiko? Or Grand Seiko.
I mean, with me, I believe that there's balance in everything, right?
That's
So
true.
having
That's true.
having a couple of core lines is definitely a good thing, but then having very limited editions of different lines that cycle through, like I think that's also very important as well. Like it really shows who's well, it kind of shows who your market is. When you have that core lineup is like, okay, sick. Like we have, I don't know, I don't even know what brand does this, but yeah, you'd have your core lines and you'd be like, hey, these are sick. They're they're standard production. They're
Yes.
great. Anybody could have one. But then you have these limited editions, which are I would say not the same, like different case designs and whatnot, like really make them different, but really like infuse that DNA into the limited editions, and then you only have like depending how big the brand is, anywhere from 50 to a few hundred limited editions that really go out to your true collectors and your true fans, right?
That is true. That is true. But
Hmm.
what you just said reminded me of something. Is that even though each brand has a staple collection, let's say Rolex Submariner, and
Hmm.
they blatantly tell you that yeah, this is our staple. We're not going to change anything about it because
Hmm.
we love how it is, right? But then there's some brands like Omega just keep like finding variation of that same watch and call
Hmm.
it like, oh, this is limited edition now, Speedmaster, blah blah. I was like,
Limited to
okay,
3,000 pieces.
right, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, okay, maybe put out a limited edition of, I don't know, Railmaster. Maybe that's what people want to see, right? You have so much Speedmaster variation already, so
Yeah,
many,
I
like,
know. And again, it's the same case. It's just different case materials, different dial colors.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to say that is your main line, sure. I feel like it would be better for you to just, uh, um, mm, not fuck with it. Just
Hmm.
let it be a
Yeah.
classic. Just let it be
Hmm.
on top, right? Your keystone.
Hmm.
But just do something else with other watches in your collection, man. They're
Yeah,
being left alone.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. It's like, you have it like limited editions, you could put that title on any watch and just produce it X amount of times. You could have two moon watches,
Thank you, thank you.
right? And they could look, okay, think about the oh my God, which one was it that they just released? Like the Snoopy.
I mean, the
blue
Snoopy, yeah.
You know, it's the exact same watch. Just it, other than material choice and dial color and a Snoopy on the dial. It's okay.
Right.
Like, okay, some design had to go into it. Sure. You know, like there
Yeah.
were decisions made, but again, like you have the price so high, why make it a limited edition? You know,
Yeah,
like
and
not
it's
everybody's going to go and buy it. It's still exclusive as it is.
and to be honest, it's not that big of a deal that you put Snoopy on the watch. Like it's a gimmicky
Yeah.
thing. It's nice. I would love to have one, but do you have to price it so expensive? Like
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
there's right. And have you seen that meme where people are saying that Omega secretly funded the moon landing, like upcoming moon landing? They're like, we got to put out a new line. Like we're
Yeah.
funding it. It's so funny. But when it comes to adventurous or not, I often associate, like when I see this one design, which is the jumping hour design, I always think that it's really brave that anyone's doing it because
Mm-hmm.
it's really easily mistaken as a date display.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, when they hold a jumping hour, they're like, what the hell is this? Like, there's only one hand. Like, I don't know how to read it, right? So it's such a refreshing approach to tell time, which is also my favorite sub feature. I'd say it's kind of like a sub feature. So, in your opinion, what is your favorite sub feature for us?
I mean, I love jumping hours as well. Like people, like you said, people don't get them, and I find it like the watch brings humor almost. It's like what is this, right? Like you just said,
Yeah.
and you know, it's such a fine complication to, like, you know, you have very, very prestigious watchmakers doing jumping hours because it's, you know, it's a difficult complication to do,
Yes.
right? And you know, I definitely say that's one of my favorites for sure. I also love chronographs. You know, like they're timeless. You know, like you could have so many different types and variations of chronographs, like your gram. Like you don't see that
Yes.
very often, and then you have, you know, something completely opposite, like say a Navitimer, and then something
Yes.
completely opposite from that, you have like an old Hoyer, you know, like an old Panda Hoyer. And it's like
That
you
is
have
true.
so
That is
many
true.
different variations of the same watch and so many different uses for just one complication. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'd say
yeah.
that's definitely up there as well.
My mom loves chronograph as well,
Hmm.
but it's just also a really funny story because my mom loves both my parents, they're not that into watches, but when I
Hmm.
asked them, it's like, oh, because my mom owns like a few Daytonas,
Hmm.
and my dad, even though he's not into watches, he has like a Cartier Roadster and an
Hmm.
IWC Portofino, right?
Yep.
So my dad disliked chronograph. He was like, it's so intrusive. It's like he wants something that's just a time, which is why he doesn't really like both of his watch because
Hmm.
both of them are chronographs, which is really really funny. And yeah, but is there like a self feature that you find like why are you doing this again? Like I don't really like this. Do you have like a self feature that you dislike?
I mean, I'm laughing at myself now, but it's like it's the first thing that came to my mind was like erotic watches. Like they're
Oh
usually minute repeaters, but then you have the
yes,
chiming on the back, and you got a couple people just
yes,
doing their thing, you know. And
yes.
you know, the minute repeater, I love minute repeaters. They're also very awesome. But it's like, I who would wear that, and what occasion would you wear that at? You know, like,
Drake would wear that.
okay, so Drake actually has an RM69, which is an erotic watch, and it's not a minute repeater, but it's like a roulette kind of complication.
Yeah, like the dice rolling thing. I
Yeah,
love that
exactly.
watch. To be honest,
Yeah,
I
it's
love.
sick. You
Yeah,
know, I love it too, but it's not, if it's not in your face. You know, it's just
that's
not
true.
like who was it? Ulysse Nardin released, I think, was like a year or a year and a half ago, like it was like a mermaid erotic thing going on there.
A
It's like they have their whole,
mermaid.
yeah, look it up. Seriously, I
Elise
kid you not.
Nardon.
It's a part of their freak collection, and you know, some of their watches they're really out there, and you know, a lot of them do look pretty interesting. But knowing what's going on behind the thought process of those watches, it boggles my mind,
Oh,
honestly.
oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That was the watch that was in my mind, but I didn't know it
Hmm.
was. Imagine what goes into the board. It's like, okay, guys, let's
Hmm.
make a watch. A minute repeater, and there was like, oh yeah, for sure. And they were like, let's about two people fucking.
Hmm.
That's what we're gonna make.
Honestly,
And
like,
yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's so funny to see how like people having sex as a minute repeater is kind of like a thing now,
Hmm.
but they would be like, oh, because you did this in this position, I'm going to change up the position. Like, that's
Yeah,
so awkward to
it's weird.
discuss.
And you know what? It's a historic thing too. It's not like this is a new kind of complication. Like it goes back, like I think maybe even some pocket watches may have had it, but it's not, it's not kind of to today's kind of tastes in society, at least not in my opinion, right? It takes a very certain type of collector to be like, yeah, I want that, like
It's their porn, it's their version of porn, like just easy access. I mean, now for us, like whatever on the internet, but then back then, they need
yeah.
some to get get themselves
Hmm.
going. Like during the day, they need that
Yeah.
watch.
Although those Swiss winter nights get really long for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They need, like, so when you hear your neighbor, like it keeps like chiming, there's a bell chiming, you know
Hmm.
what's
You
going
know what's going
on.
on.
You know what's going on. So, but yeah, we said we wait, what did we talk about? The sub feature
Yeah,
about
the
the
complications.
sub
Yeah.
feature. Yes. And I've also known that as you mentioned just now, you've talked about a lot of micro brands, and obviously
Hmm.
I wouldn't say you're involved, but you have knowledge within the
Hmm.
micro brand or independent watchmaking scene. So meaning that because you followed quite a bit. So do you think the current atmosphere in the watchmaking scene, different categories of watches, you said typologies, diving, aviation,
Hmm.
chronographs, are seeing a more blurry, blended design? If yes, good or bad? If no, do you think they should incorporate into each other?
Okay. So, hmm, okay, I think I'd go about. Okay, I'm going to tell a little kind of anecdote here. I had a prof once tell me that the best professional in any profession is a great storyteller. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about these blurred lines within the industry, like yes, they definitely are getting more blurry, but it's how the brands kind of portray a watch, right? So if
Yes.
you say have, okay, think about the Tudor Chronos, the Black Bay
Mm,
Chronos.
mm.
Is it a racing watch or is it a dive watch? It has a tachymeter, but it
Not
has 200
sure.
meters water resistance, right? So it's a blurred line that like really would, it could confuse, potential buyers, right? So if you give me, say, a pilot's watch with 200 meters water resistance, but it has all the features of a pilot's watch,
Mm.
that's a blurry line that that could really be good for a brand. It's like, hey, it's extremely versatile. it's
Yes.
it's a watch that I don't need to baby too much, right? Whereas, say, if you have um, a dive watch that has all these different complications on it and it doesn't necessarily function as a dive watch anymore, it's like, what's the story you're trying to tell, right? So
Right.
it for me, it all depends on how the brand portrays that piece or that lineup, right?
Because
Hmm.
I feel like the cause of the blurry line is because not a lot of people are wearing these watches as actual tool watches, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is the chance of someone buying a chronograph actually are racers? What's the chance of someone buying a Submariner are actually divers, right? So I guess
Right.
they're kind of making everything slightly dressy so you can wear them every day. But here's the thing, though.
Hmm.
Here's a funny anecdote that I have. So,
Hmm.
because I myself is not not a big fan of the blurry lines now. Like, even though they
Hmm.
are incorporating dressiness in the watches, but as you said, the Tudor chronograph, right? Is it a dive watch? Is it like a chronograph? We don't know. But as a watch collector, at least for my philosophy, I want to know if I'm buying this watch as this thing. I want to have a clearer view on. And I brought that
Hmm.
discussion to Watch You Seek, which is the greatest mistake I've ever made. So first thing first, I registered under Gentleman Pursuits, and I
Hmm.
didn't know it's not supposed to be a thing you do. You're supposed to be a personal thing because they
Hmm.
banned me a day after. I brought that discussion to them. I was like, hey, do you guys think the lines are kind of blurring?
Hmm.
I have never seen so many toxic people
Hmm.
within a watch community just going after you, like, oh yeah, I mean you think a dress watch is but oh my god, like I was just trying to discuss and you guys are attacking me for
Yeah.
proposing the question. It was like, there's
And then
one
you're
of
the one
the
who got kicked.
I got banned, bro. I got
Yeah. Like
banned.
it's honestly, I've actually never really gone on forums before. And I know a lot of watch guys that have, they go on to sell, they go on to discuss, but I've heard stories like that where it's like, why put up with like that toxicity? Instagram has, I've unfollowed people who have been kind of toxic on there, and it's like at least there I could unfollow on there, like on What You Seek or
Yeah.
other forums.
The reason why
It's open season.
I was on Watch You Seek the first time, I mean, in the first place, because I was trying to, first of all, I want to grow my channel. I want to establish
Hmm.
my presence, right? So I was like, oh, what's a better place to discuss and establish my presence at the same time? Forums, right? So they know who
Yeah.
I am. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on Watch You Seek, bro. What? It's just too toxic, man.
Yeah, it was too much. Like I feel like the forums are a place where people who like watches and yeah, are watch people, they could anonymously just start roasting anybody they see. Like you
Yeah.
can't really do that on Instagram because it's semi-personal. Like you could choose how personal you are on Instagram. But at
Yes.
some point you're gonna end up meeting people, whether it be through like Red Bar, meetups, whatever.
Yes. Yes.
And on the forums, it's
It's so
it's
funny,
like
man. It's
it's
so funny.
completely you could be completely anonymous.
It's so funny. And
It's crazy.
not related to what we're discussing today, but another discussion that I started. So this is slightly controversial. Like the reason why I
Mhm.
even started is because I won something that's slightly controversial, so people would start like discussing.
Mhm.
But no, they attack. So the question I pose is, brands like, let's say Breguet or Glasuta, right? They're known for really high-end watchmaking. Basically, if you're not rich, you wouldn't even consider buying these watches, right?
Mhm.
And so I was like, during COVID time, right? It's when your targeted audience is such a small portion already,
Mhm.
and during COVID time, it's really easy for these company to go under, right? So I was like,
Mhm.
do you think some of these brands should like have like a more entry level, not entry level to a point where it's like Tudor entry level or Omega entry level, but entry level for their brand. So it's like a safer choice for them financially to keep them, whatever. That's
Mhm.
basically the premise of my discussion. And they're like, wow, it's really disrespectful for you to think that Glasuta and Breguet would even think of anything like that, because I was like, dude, it was a circumstantial thing. Like, chill. I
Yeah.
didn't. It's so
I
funny.
mean, if you think about it, Rolex just did it. They just did it with those OPs,
Yeah,
right? With the different colors. It's like, you're reaching out to a different kind of market. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like brands do it, like outside of the watch industry, brands do it all the
exactly.
time.
There's
And
nothing
I
wrong
don't
with
I
it.
don't think there's nothing wrong with it. Like I've held a couple of Breguet like Type 20s, and they're gorgeous chronographs. My buddy has one, and it's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
But there's nothing wrong with, like, hey, maybe we have, something sub, you know $10,000, because Breguet, you really start
Yeah.
at like say 15, right? 12 to
Yeah,
15.
yeah, yeah. I feel like for anyone that loves Brigade, if they actually did
Hmm.
something that's not too like, oh, it's 2,000 now. If it's like,
Hmm.
10,000, 12,000, whatever, they would be
Yeah.
grateful
Hmm.
that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
Brigade, first of all, a brand they like, and like rest assured that they're gonna love anything they put out, right? So
Yeah.
they're gonna be happy about it. I don't know why you're so pressed, bro.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's the
Really funny.
exclusivity part of it, right? Like, it,
It's
it is a brand that
That's
is,
true.
right. It is exclusive, but again, you could have different pieces in, like, within an umbrella that like are more or less exclusive, right?
Right,
Like
right, 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 right.
I'm going to go back to Rolex. You have pretty much like their mid-range steel models becoming so exclusive. I mean, it's not necessarily Rolex. Well, it is kind of Rolex's fault that they are, right? Because
Mm,
they are holding back on supply and whatnot. But you
I hate
have
it.
a. Honestly, it's not helping them. It's helping the gray market dealers. But again, it's like you could have that exclusivity range within a brand. You know, I don't think
Yes.
there's anything wrong with that, as long as he's not artificially creating it.
Really interesting that you brought exclusivity up, because this I just had another question that I want to ask, is that because watch collecting is in society considered to be like an exclusive thing, like it's an acquired taste, right?
Hmm.
As you said, like my phone can tell time. Why would I want a watch, right? So it's not really about the time telling. So I've also known people that, including myself, that would not talk about watch collecting at all, even though it's just
Hmm.
our passion and hobby, to our normal friends, because this may seem to be like a of us like flaunting and flexing
Hmm.
in front of them.
Yep.
Do you think, do you have the same feeling when talking about watches?
I mean, for me personally, no. I mean,
Okay.
my university, like I started, again, I was like 17, so I would have been like, say, third year university or second when I
Okay.
started my profile. And, up until today, still, I'm with people my age, my peers, right? I had my undergrad friends, they would, they wouldn't, I don't think they would think I was flexing. They would, give me a laugh every time I'm taking pictures, like, oh, he's doing it again, but it wasn't anything, like vicious. It was just like, yeah, it's his hobby, like we're with it, but, we could have fun, with him as
Poking.
well. It
Right,
just,
right, right.
you know, and even my university friends, that I've met in my master's, they're, I mean, not to the same degree, but they're just like, oh, dude, like, I was a sick pick, like, and I'm
That's,
not, me personally, I'm kind of discreet about it, if that makes sense. It's not like
yeah.
it's every conversation that I'm having, like if somebody asks me about it, of course, I'm gonna entertain the conversation, but it's like, there are people, outside of, like, there are conversations to be had outside of this hobby, obviously, right? There's a whole,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
universe
yeah.
to talk about. And I think it goes back to the toxic people, where it just like, that's where the flexing kind of happens, and they may not even, they may want to portray themselves as watch people, but really it's a flex thing, and that's
Yeah,
where it
yeah,
gets
yeah,
really
yeah.
toxic,
Which is basically 90% of Instagram. They're like
Hmm.
Rolex.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for
so
sure.
yeah, maybe I
I'm
just
actually,
have, yeah, maybe I just have really shitty friends sometimes. Like I feel like whenever I talk about watches, or when they ask, they would like, sometimes when back in high school, which is where which I first started being known for the guy that's into watches, they would
Mhm.
like ask me question about watches and trying to like haze me about that. I was like, okay, guys, okay, like chill out.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's a maturity thing too, with yourself and with the people you're hanging out with, because again, at 17, you're very different than you are at 22,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
we all see change and whatnot, and and people mature into it, and they mature into humor, they mature into different things. Like, it's a very different thing to have a good laugh and to haze, you know.
yes, 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 yes. That's so true. That's so true. So, final question of the day,
Hmm.
uh, and I think I'm gonna get an interesting answer from you. So, first, actually, two questions. First, what is your current favorite brand,
Hmm.
and what do you wish they do more and do less?
Hmm. That's a tough one. Favorite brand. I mean, like I said before, like I'm so like open-minded, and my subjectivity levels are just as open. So it's like it's so much to love, in the wonderful world of watches.
No, like
Um,
favorite brand is more like whenever they put out something new, they're like, it's almost a guarantee that I'm gonna love it, because that's what a favorite brand
no, no,
is.
I know. Like, and for me, there's so many brands that are like that for me.
Oh,
It's just like, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, Oris just released their big pilot pointer date, and like, I don't know, every time Oris releases something, like it's just like a wow
Is,
feeling.
oh,
But then
is
again,
that the limited edition, like the Roberto Clemente one?
yeah, yeah, like the colors are just so gorgeous
I
on it, and
love that.
yeah,
I love that
gorgeous.
watch.
Yeah, but again, it's like that. I get that feeling with so many other brands. Like Omega is kind of losing it for me, I guess. It's again, it's the same thing, just like
Yeah,
Rolex. It's almost the same thing every single time. And it's like, okay, it's cool, but you guys gonna come up with
it's
something
not
else?
that cool anymore.
Yeah, it's getting old.
It's getting old.
Yeah, and you know what? again, with Breitling, like they've gone through a whole brand kind of reimagination with their new CEO, and they're going back to their history. Like they're releasing like heritage versions of their pieces, like the Super Ocean, the Navitime, and whatnot. And they did such a beautiful job with them, and it's gorgeous. But again, they're not necessarily new designs; they're reimagined designs of what it was. And again, all gorgeous, all gorgeous. I'm just trying to think of more recent ones, like again, the Oris Pointer Date.
If it's harder for you to pinpoint one brand, what do you think in general you wish to see more in a watch? Like something that's underrated and you're like, I really want to see more in this.
Underrated. I think, okay, so I'm going to start with what's, I think, a little bit overrated and a little bit more saturated is divers. And I think I want to see, like, I love divers. I love them. Like, they're so practical. Like, you could literally do anything with them. You could beat the hell out of them. But, maybe going more dressy and casual. Honestly, like the market has so much going on in the tool watch sector. Why not, go with more of just like a casual lifestyle approach? And I think that's why, going back to the Pointer Date, why I liked it so much is that it's a Pointer Date complication, right? It's just, it's simple, it's easy. It doesn't need to do a lot, right? It's not going to go diving. Like, it's like, if anything, it's probably under, I guess, the more pilot watch category.
I think it's a pilot watch. Yeah. Big Crown is a pilot watch.
It's a Big Crown. Yeah, it is a pilot's watch. But again, it's not portraying the pilot's watch, like, through and through, because Oris does have their Big Crowns, which are like, that's hands down a pilot's watch. You can't mistake it for anything else. But, going back to the Pointer Date, it's more casual. You could use it in a more dressy setting. It's like,
Yes.
And I think that's where the watch market kind of needs to go, because even now micro brands are going with tool watches, and you're seeing less and less divers within that kind of category. You're still seeing more like field watches and more casual pieces, which is great. And I think the Swiss watch and Japanese watch market kind of need to go that route too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to say, because I myself love more dressy watches. Which is like really funny, because whenever I do an episode with Gareth, which is like another friend of mine, it was like because we have polar opposite taste in watches. He loves field watches. He loves watches like a Tudor PO1, which is a tank basically.
Yeah.
And he loves Flieger. I love watches that are like, Santos Dumont and, more dressy watch. And I really would love to see more watches like a Santos Dumont, which is when you look at the Cartier Santos Dumont, you know immediately, first of all, it's versatile and it's just elegant.
Yeah.
Right. It's not even complicated. It's simple and it's just elegant. And I would love to see more, as you said, more micro brands or independent watchmaker go that route, because let's say Helios, right?
Yep.
Awesome brand. I love their shit, but most of their stuff are like diving watch, right? And there's this what's that brand called? Dan Henry.
Yeah, Dan Henry.
Dan Henry, yes, Dan Henry. Yep. Awesome brand as well, but it's more like an aviation field watch approach.
Yeah.
Right? The only brand that like a kind of independent or micro brand that is going for the dress watch approach is Christopher Ward. Is it Christopher Ward?
Yeah, but they also have a lot of tool watches too. They have a lot of divers, and their divers are, they're insane. But again, they do have, a few pieces in their collection that are veering towards that kind of dressy, casual sort of deal, right?
Yes, and that's why I totally agree with you. We should see more dress watch approach in the current market. And dude, like it's almost like time's up for the episode, but like I really enjoyed today's conversation, man. I loved it. Finally have you on the podcast as well. Like we've been talking on Instagram, like back and forth, like tagging each other on shit, and finally get a chance to talk with you. Also, please make the Watchbug Monday hashtag a thing.
I mean, I think I'm a little bit more humble than that, and plus, I can't compete with Blue Watch Monday. Like, Blue Watch Monday is such a big thing. Like, I don't know. Watchbug Monday, it has to catch on. I'm not gonna force it, but hey, if it happens, it happens.
Hey, let's go. Let's go. We
Do it.
have to make it happen. We will make it happen. We gotta trust. We gotta manifest it. It will
Oh, for
happen.
sure. Two
Yes.
guys and a hashtag. Let's do it.
Two guys in a hashtag. I was like, I didn't like that format of the title. I didn't like that.
Yeah, no. It came out and it was just like, nope.
Yeah. Sounded
Nope.
wrong. But
Yeah.
get your head out of the nasty.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for taking the time to get into the podcast with me today. Really lovely conversation with you. And to be honest, I can totally see us doing another episode, maybe with another person, like three of us talk
100%.
about watching, like a discussion. I would love to have that happen. And oh my God, the major thing about this episode, you have to teach me how to take nice photos. And this is, okay, I'm going to end this episode and then you're going to teach me. And then I'm going to cut both things together.
You pull it together?
Yeah. But yes, thank you once again. This is Andrew Cara on the podcast, the guest here with us today, Bit by the Watchbug. Make sure to go follow him on Instagram. Show him some love. He got some amazing watches and some amazing watch shots that you guys need to check out. And yes, thank you once again. This is Ryan from Gentleman Pursuits, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Take care, everybody.